We are now ready for the AgTech group. So please welcome to the stage our judges, Hank Giclas from Western Growers, Mike Betts from AgFunders, and Christie Pitts from Verizon Ventures. And Mark Noronha from SAP Startup Focus. So if we can please first start off with the judges. If you can go ahead and start with Mark and go ahead and give an introduction and tell us about yourself and your background.
Sure. Hi, my name is Mark Noronha. I'm part of SAP, specifically a startup accelerator within SAP, which might be the world's best kept secret. But we've been around for about 3.5, almost 4 years, taking startup innovation to our customers. And as you know, SAP is, and has been over the last 40 years, the premier business applications software company. And our customers are some of the largest customers in the world across 26 different industries in which we operate. So we've had a lot of fun over the last few years, really taking this innovation to our customers and helping these startups generate revenue. That's what I do within the program.
So my name is Hank Giclas. I'm a senior vice president with Western Growers. Western Growers is a 90-year-old trade organization that represents growers and packers and processors of fresh fruits, nuts, and vegetables in California, Arizona, and Colorado. We're fundamentally interested in AgTech to solve some of the challenges that are facing the agricultural industry. And Western Growers has launched an incubator in the Salinas area in December of 2015. I lead that charge, and we're starting to explore the AgTech space.
Hi, I'm Christie Pitts. I'm here on behalf of Verizon Ventures. Verizon is very interested in the AgTech space, and we do that in a couple of ways. So with Verizon, we have a business unit dedicated to AgTech innovation. We have come out with a couple of IoT products in this area. And then on the Ventures team, we are also looking to make investments in companies that further our interest in AgTech. A couple examples of companies we've invested in so far are Precision Hawk and Filament, which are, one is a UAV company and one is an industrial IoT company. So really looking forward to seeing the companies presenting today, and thanks for having us here.
Hi, Mike Betts from Director of Investments for AgFunder. We've been around for about 3 years. We're an online investment platform focused on agriculture and food technology businesses. Our mission is to help companies raise capital more efficiently, and so we've done that through our platform. We also run AgFunder News, which is an industry-leading news source for investment news in the agriculture technology space.
I am not Michael Tarosian. Anyhow, you know who I am, Denyse Cardozo, Executive Director of Silicon Valley Forum. And I'm going to go ahead and start by calling the first company up. So please welcome from USA, Kate Kotenko Lengold with Astro Digital.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate, and I head business development in one of the most exciting companies in the Bay Area, Astro Digital. Imagine being able to monitor any place in the world from space daily with satellites. So Astra Digital is building a platform that enables app developers monitor Earth from space. Being 400 miles above the Earth's surface gives us a unique perspective on things that are happening on a global scale and on the local scale. So we can dive into things and see details of change and context of change. With Astro Digital, you can build solutions for farm management, for precision agriculture, global supply chain management, food security, and many others. So anyone with basic web development skills can start using our API. The way it works is we generate a huge archive of data. We integrate data from different sources, from open data sources, from commercial data sources, and data from our own small-size constellation. And we build processing pipeline, which extracts information from those pixels. And then we build an API, which streams the results into end-user applications. Let me give you a couple of examples of apps that can be built on top of our API. This one, for example, gives you an idea of what the fields look like and what vegetation on field level and farm level look like. So you can understand the changes and make timely decisions on applying fertilizers or pesticides or predicting the optimal harvest date or yield on the field level and on the farm level. Also, this one is a little bit more generic picture. So in this particular example, we can look at maize fields all around Kenya and understand how maize is growing there and connect the value of the amount of healthy vegetation with information about the supply chain. Okay. So we're focusing at about $7.4 billion market. And agriculture is a big chunk of it. This is the one we focus on. This is the one we start with over $3 billion total. But as we move forward, we see ourselves also exploring opportunities in timber management, in forestry monitoring, disaster response, and urban planning. We started just a few words about the competition and what is out there. So satellite market and satellite data market and analytics companies market is getting more and more crowded. Compared to traditional data providers, traditional satellite companies, and emerging small-sat players, we're thinking beyond pretty pictures and maps. Astro Digital is about creating a global data set tuned for analysis and systems for extracting information from this global data stream. If we compare ourselves to analytical companies give you answers to particular questions. We give you a set of tools to get to those answers yourself, specifically for questions that your company has. Instead of selling pixels, which was the traditional way how the industry used to work, we're selling subscription to our API. Our customers are companies that build products for agriculture and beyond, and the average lifetime value of those customers vary from $1 to $5 million. We started our company a little bit over a year ago, in January 2015. 4 months later, we launched the commercial version of our platform. Since then, we got more than 2,000 developers that generated more than 100 imagery requests from over 90 countries. We have more than 80 million in LOIs and user agreements, and we're looking to grow to 500 million in revenue by 2020. And while we are building this amazing software platform and growing our customer base, we're also building a constellation of small-sized satellites that are going to be a unique data source for daily data about the changing planet. And the first batch of our satellites is launching just in 12 weeks. We have a terrific team of 21 software and hardware engineer data scientists from here and outside of the United States, and all of these people have over 100 years of experience in geospatial technologies, space, and also in business. Now, we are based just across the road from here in NASA Ames Research Park. So if you're interested, please feel free to stop by and have a look at our birds, and also learn more about our big vision and our big plan to revolutionize the way people use satellite data in agriculture and beyond. Thank you.
Okay, who would like to start it off? Mark?
So, good pitch. APIs only, that's the revenue model?
Say again?
So your revenue model is based around APIs, making data available?
So it's a subscription model based on use of the API. So customers pay X amount of dollars per hectare per year for monitoring their areas of interest. And the subscription fee is either monthly or annual fee, proportionate to the consumption.
Do you see that changing over a period of time?
We are experimenting with business models. We have been doing it over the course of the last 12 months. At this point, this model is very flexible and it's very tailored to our beachhead market, agriculture. And so far, we like it, but we are open to changes. We're trying to be very agile in that way.
Okay, thank you.
How granular are the images? So could a farmer make a decision about a crop while it's in field based on the image?
So there are several, as I mentioned, we're integrating different data sources. And those data sources can go from fairly low resolution, but on a very high frequency, to a very high resolution and a little bit lower frequency. So for high value crops, you need high resolution imagery, but less frequently. For like cornfields, you don't need that much of resolution to make decisions. So you need medium resolution or low resolution imagery. And we have all of that in our platform. This is why we believe in this data agnostic approach, where we integrate different data sources so that you can use what suits for your product needs.
So you said for high value crops, high resolution, low frequency?
It's not necessarily low frequency. I would like to correct myself.
Yeah.
It's important to have higher resolution for high value crops. And at this point, there is no data source that can provide you fairly high resolution data at on a weekly basis. This is one of the reasons why we're launching our constellation. We're going to have HD constellation, which allows you to monitor any place in the world at 2.5 meter every 3-4 days. And we believe that it's a great fit for small farms, for small fields, and also for high value crops.
So how do you think that you compete with the aerial data providers, the folks who are actually flying Cessnas and other equipment like that with NVDI imaging and other imaging?
I think it's a great question. We do not see it as a competition. We believe this is very much complementary solution. We are working with Precision Hoke with Data Mapper, for example. We believe that satellite data is a very cost-effective way to see the whole picture, to see changes as they happen frequently for very low price. And aerial data is a great way to understand the details of those changes and actually to dig deeper. And if they use together, it's a very good way to really understand both in high frequency and in depth what is going on.
Can you talk to the consumers of the API? What do your customers look like? And kind of, I mean, how does that look as you're selling an API? And just I imagine there's different types of consumers that you're selling to and what those look like.
So as I mentioned, our customers are app developers or product companies that build those solutions. We don't want to build end user solutions and sell them to end users because there's so much to do, and in different verticals, in different geographies, you need different kind of approach. So product companies that we work with, typically they do solutions for, let's say, farm management, and they want to complement their service with freshly updates on field performance or yield prediction. Could be also companies in financial sector or in insurance that want to make more informed decisions for risk mitigation, for fraud detection. So having a data stream which is fresh and fairly inexpensive is very important for them, and it really expands the functionality of solutions that they build. And also, I talked a little bit about the business model. At this point, there is no solution that gives you that flexibility to get small amounts of data, to have fresh data, not to worry about processing. We try to maximize the ease of use of these things, and we see a lot of interest in the market, and customer adoption looks very, very good.
So right now you're a SaaS company leveraging your API, but you mentioned that you're also looking to launch satellites as well. So can you describe your go-to-market process for that aspect of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that we are currently data poor. We need more data. However, launching satellites takes a while. So before we launched satellites, we started building a platform, and we started powering the platform with data from other sources. So what I showed you, we achieved before launching satellites. But in 12 weeks, we're launching the first batch of our satellites, and we're growing this constellation over the course of the next couple of years. What it does for us, it increases the frequency and the accuracy of the analysis that we can do today. So by doing this combination of third-party data and our data, we can transition nicely and have customers now before launching the constellation.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next company from the USA. Please welcome Chris Hansen from Aromyx.
Hi, thank you. I'm Chris Hansen. I'm CEO of Aromyx and a founder of Aromyx. Aromyx is digitizing taste and scent. This is something that is new and we think will be revolutionary. We're measuring taste and scent using the actual biochemical stack from the human nose and tongue. So until now, you've been able, say, to analyze Coca-Cola, analyze the chemicals in Coca-Cola, or use mass spectrometry to look at Pepsi-Cola. But knowing the chemicals in the product is not going to give you really any idea of what it tastes or smells like. There's never really been a way to measure a taste or a smell. We lack a sensor for that. So we've had cameras as a capture device for our sense of vision, and we've had, we have the iPhone now for auditory. We have stress and strain gauges for our sense of touch, but there has not been a capture device for olfaction or for taste. And in fact, those two senses were only recently understood, since probably the late 90s, 2000. Why is this important? Big companies, food and beverage companies, consumer packaged goods companies, agriculture companies, chemical companies, care very much about taste and scent. It's often the central quality of their products, and yet they have no way to measure that. So imagine any other industry if you were making shirts, but nobody had ever invented the ruler or the standard of an inch. You'd just have piles of shirts, and you'd have to say, well, you look big, there's a pile of big shirts over there. So we think this is a very basic value we can add to these big technology, companies and big industries. So and case in point is processed food companies. 60% of American calories come from ultra-processed food still. And big companies like Campbell's and Pepsi are hemorrhaging market share, $18 billion in the last 5 years as consumers shift towards healthier products. So there's great pain for these companies, almost existential pain, $4 billion lost in the last year. These companies need to reformulate Pepsi, reformulate Campbell's tomato soup to make them healthier, but there's no reformulation technology, there's no automation there because you can't measure the taste or the scent. So our solution is elegant. We take the receptors, there are about 370 in the nose and tongue, the receptors that allow humans to smell and taste. We array those in plastic plates. You can see those are pictured there. And then you expose the plate to some Coca-Cola, either gas or aqueous sample. You pop the plate into a common piece of lab equipment called a plate reader, and you can read what the human sensory response to Coca-Cola is. We sell the biosensors and we sell the data. It's a big opportunity. We have some great beta customers that are paying us right now, and we have a very fat sales pipeline. Very experienced team, and we actually have 13 PhDs associated with the company. We have what we think is blocking IP. We're doing our Series A now and really raising that money to allow us to close on deals in the pipeline and ramp up sales. So those are the basics. We think it's truly a unique opportunity Big market, and we are way out in the lead on this.
Who'd like to take this first? Mike?
What are some of the use cases some of your test customers are using it for?
A big one is reformulation, either to make Pepsi, for example, healthier, or to make it cost less, or ideally both. So you use the chip to measure Pepsi the way it is now, the way everybody likes it. But Pepsi's really not good for you. You know, soda pop is not good for you. But a lot of people like the taste. So then you measure all the possible ingredients, including alfalfa and kale and pine nuts and chamomile. And then it becomes a mathematical optimization problem to blend back to ideal Pepsi flavor. You can get like 1,000 different recipes to get to that flavor at the push of a button. And ideally, some of those are going to be healthier, and some will be cheaper, and ideally, some will be both healthier and cheaper, and that's a huge win for Pepsi. That's one big use. Another one we're finding is malodor canceling. You know the concept of noise canceling. So often malodors crop up in the manufacturing process, so you have 100,000 gallons of Old Spice that smell like old socks. And they don't know why that happens. They know what the chemical is causing the problem. So we map what receptors are being hit by that malodor, and we can cancel it out. So those are a couple.
So you mentioned that you have a few customers that are like trial customers, proof of concept now.
Yes.
Have they shared any feedback with with any efficiency gains, or how your technology has helped them change their processes?
Well, again, with the example of malodor, we are the technology of last resort. So they've tried everything else. And so far we're successful in canceling some of the malodors that they've encountered. But as far as quantifying it, no. I think we all, everyone involved, our customers too, feel that this is a huge opportunity, but not quantified yet.
So one thing you talked about was part of the business model is selling the data that's collected.
Yes.
And I was just curious, I mean, don't some of the companies like PepsiCo or those types of things consider flavor and odor, data that's associated with their products a proprietary, piece of information?
That's a great question, and it's somewhat complex. So when we first started working on this, we went to all those companies before we ever built anything, and they said, we absolutely want a portable system we can use behind our firewall in private, so we never have to tell anybody what we're doing. And so we did that. As it turns out, a company like Pepsi will keep kind of the crown jewel Pepsi data secret, but they do all kinds of other testing, so they may test 10 different kinds of vanilla. They just want to use that data. They don't care whether anybody else knows about it. So they're willing to put that for sale through our data mart, and we'll split the income with them.
So that's a way for them to generate revenue off the data that they generate.
Yeah, and often the revenue often goes back to their R&D people, so the R&D people can become a profit center.
I'm also just curious, right? I love the idea of quantitative, data in this regard. But have you ever, put your technology up against, the traditional taste tester to see if you come up with the same answers?
We've done that informally. We plan an event probably in the fall around wine to do that, if we can get any wine experts. But we have a bunch of wine people associated with the company, so we think we'll probably get some press doing that. As far as your earlier question about the Pepsi data, anybody can buy our chips, and anybody can buy a bottle of Pepsi. So pretty soon, the Pepsi receptor data is going to be published, whether Pepsi publishes it or not.
Well, I'm sorry, that leads to another question. Don't you consider that to be a threat to your business model? I mean, if people can go out and, discover what the secret sauce is in some of these?
Yeah, we haven't worked that out yet. That's a great question. I guess, the companies we're working with also realize that others can run the tests on their products, and it hasn't stopped them from working with us.
Who are your competitors?
Go ahead.
Well, there are three. I won't go into names, but there are 3 or 4 groups that we know of that are using human receptors like this. They're organized more as a lab service for hire. So their technology tends not to be scalable to a portable device. So they're kind of trapped in their labs. So they'll work with a Pepsi or a Coke to develop a new sweetener, for example, using human receptors. Typically, they limit themselves to taste receptors, but they don't have portable devices.
Thank you so much, Chris. Great presentation.
Okay, please welcome Cather Simpson from New Zealand, Engender Technologies.
Thanks very much. In order to get milk, she's got to have a calf. And some calves are a lot more valuable than others. The single most important genetic determinant of that is the sex. And if farmers could have a switch so that they could control the sex of the offspring in their herd, then they would be able to do things like accelerate genetic gain by breeding only the top half of the herd against the best dairy bulls. They'd also be able to eliminate a lot of waste. Millions of bobby calves, male calves, are killed every year because they have no value. Farmers could breed the bottom half of their herd against really high-quality beef bulls. That would allow them to make more money and also have less impact on the environment for dairy. The company that gets this right, conservatively, we're talking about 9-figure revenues, and Engender is lining up to be that company. Now, how do we do it? We use proprietary microfluidic and photonic technology to sort cells individually as they're passing through a chip. The IP is in the orientation part and in the switching part, and right now we're working with patent lawyers in the US and in New Zealand to build a thicket around that. What does it look like? This is what the chip looks like today. The chip is right in the middle. Okay, and the stuff that's all around is the nanopumps, the fiber optics, and things like that. The model for selling this is to take that chip and turn it into an injection molded little piece of plastic that goes into an instrument that's about the size of a desktop printer. Our customers are actually artificial insemination companies. So there aren't that many of them, which is useful for us. We already work with 2 of the top 5 in the world. They've partnered with us, given us both money and resources to move this forward. And of course, our end users are the farmers, so we have to be able to satisfy both of those groups. So I showed you where we are today. Engender started on a piece of paper a few years ago, and it's sort of 3 or 4 years worth of R&D to get us to that picture of the chip on the previous slide. Right here in 2016, we're about to hit a really important milestone. As I said, we've already got 2 of the world's largest artificial insemination companies on board. They're giving us resources. We're about to do IVF trials. The optimized chip bit is about turning it into that hard plastic widget that you can sell. And we imagine having revenues. Well, actually, we already have non-exclusive options to license in 6 countries. I can't tell you which countries, but I can tell you that they're countries even some Americans would be able to pick off of a map. One of the cool things about Engender is that, as I said, it was an industry pull project. So we looked at the existing technology, which is on the that side over there, and we were able to design around the pain points. So that technology is expensive, it doesn't work as well, it reduces the fertility, and they're really, really difficult to work with. So we designed our technology and our relationships with our partners so that we could defeat them on every front. I was totally stunned to learn how big the artificial insemination market is. 75 to 100% of the developed world uses artificial insemination for dairy. We're talking about 175 million straws of semen at $8 to $10 per straw. That's a big business. If you think about it, that's more sperm cells sold every year than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And the sexed semen, so that's for unsorted semen, Sexing Technologies has only managed to capture less than 5% of that. And the reason is that their technology is not all that great, okay? But for us, we're looking at the rest of that as our immediate addressable market. So if we can get our cells to be healthy, which we can, our artificial insemination partners say it's easy as to get 20% of the market. So we don't just turn theirs blue, we get 20% of the market. They're telling us that within 5 years, we're looking at cornering 50% of the market, converting these people that already use artificial insemination to using sexed semen, okay? At a 15% royalty model, that's hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And that's just the developed world. So we're looking at conquering the entire world one sperm cell at a time, although we've left some unsexed up there so we don't look greedy. In places like India, there are religious reasons that you can't kill the unvaluable calves. At the moment, it takes 3 Indian cows to generate as much milk as 1 New Zealand or US cow. So they're really ripe for this kind of technology. We have an aggressive, experienced team that have done seed to IPO, seed to acquisition, seed to licensing, and I run a lab that does this for a living. And the future for Engender is there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mike, want to start with you?
Sure. Couple of questions. But so in terms of efficacy, do you have early stats on what, how effective the methods are?
Effective in the sense of keeping the cells healthy? Absolutely. So we've actually installed one of our units in the lab of one of our AI partners, and they've done everything they can to the cells to put them through our device, and they can't tell the difference between the ones that have gone through and the ones that haven't. So motility, membrane integrity, those sorts of things all look perfect, which for us was our biggest risk because we're physicists, engineers, and chemists, and we kill cells all the time. Right now, we're sitting, so we've got the technology ready to do our milestone right here, which is demonstrate that we can get 70% enrichment for female. So we're sorting sperm by sex, and we're optimizing that process. Does that make sense?
So you're 70%.
So
you got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, it's 50. So you that's right. So you take the cells, you light up the DNA, so the X chromosome's a little bit bigger than the Y, and that means the female ones are a little bit brighter than the males. And then what you do is you sort based on that fluorescence, right? And so you start 50-50, and then you use a laser essentially to measure the fluorescence, and then you nudge the ones that you want in a different stream into a different flow stream in your device. And so we have developed that technology so that we can do all of that. The 70% enrichment is critical for our artificial insemination company partners to say, look, it's working. We can do almost anything, any level of enrichment arbitrarily because our technology is so inexpensive that we can do, say, 3 sorts at 70%. That has a huge advantage over the current technology because that way we save a lot more cells. Right now, their technology is so expensive that if they want to sort at, say, 95% female, they have to throw away a whole lot of healthy cells, and the artificial insemination companies don't like that at all.
Great.
So what kind of challenges do you foresee with mass adoption of this beyond the technology? I mean, are there other issues? Are there legal issues? Are there other issues that you see could be risks to the business?
So initially, we looked at the legal issues as a significant risk. because the company that we are competing against, as I said, they're a bit unpleasant. They're bullies. And so we did some very intense due diligence and freedom to operate. And so we've been through several freedom to operate exercises, and all of them have come in clean. So we are not concerned about that any longer.
Okay.
So do you worry about genetic engineering at all as potential competition
For humans or for animals?
for animals?
Not yet. So it is true that anything that we can light up, we can sort for. And when we go out and talk to the artificial insemination companies, one of the things that they love is they look at what we're doing and they say, do you think you could sort for this or that? So genetic engineering we already kind of do by just picking the ones, for example, the genetics of the bull determine the size of the calf. And so that's kind of a genetic engineering thing. If you're picking dairy bulls, you're choosing them based on the size of the calf already. We're not going in and changing their DNA. And I don't see doing that on our chip in this device, if that's what you're talking about.
Or selection, doing some sort of selection beyond just sex?
Absolutely. So the things that come up are things like, can you select for a tendency to have, say, laminitis, which shortens the life of a valuable cow for reasons completely unrelated to that, or looking for resistance to certain diseases like brucellosis.
So are you licensing the technology to these companies, or are you selling the chips? Or I'm not sure I understand the...
So we have the opportunity to do both. And right now, the companies that we're working with have non-exclusive licenses with a kind of deal in there for reduction in the price, right? Going forward, we haven't made that decision. I should say the board hasn't made that decision because I'm the scientist. And so one of the things we could do, of course, is sell those chips. You make them for a couple of dollars, and then based on how many straws you can generate from a single bull, you can sell those for, we expect on the order of $450 to $500 US, which is a very nice model. So that would be one in which you either, you lease the instruments and sell the chips as a consumable. It's one chip per bull ejaculate.
So one chip per straw?
No. It's you can get hundreds of straws.
Oh,
So a
okay.
single bull, typically they do 2 ejaculates, they run it through, and depending upon the bull, you get between 400 and 1,000 straws out of that.
Right.
But then that chip goes in the bin.
Have you patented or your technology?
It's in examination right now. Yep.
So just to make sure I'm understanding here, so that's the artificial insemination company that's actually using the chip, and the farmer is not the right word.
It's the dairy farmers. At
The
this
dairy
point, it's the
farmers
dairy
using the
farmers.
chip, or they get the straw.
No, the dairy farmers buy the straw. So,
Okay,
and
and
they're
then
doing that now.
AI
That's the
company buys
beauty
the
of
chip.
this. Yeah. So
Okay.
for the dairy farmers, they're basically buying a higher value something that they already buy. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, last company for the AgTech group. Please welcome from the USA, Dan Morash from California Safe Soil.
Hi, I'm Dan Morash. I'm the founder of California Safe Soil, here to tell you about a great sustainable way to derive value from recycled food. Our goal, our mission, is to eliminate food waste at supermarkets, and in so doing, improve the sustainability of agriculture, starting here in California and spreading. Okay, the basic value proposition is this: supermarkets will always have waste food that's unsafe to eat, always. Farms will always need to put organic matter back into the soil to replace what came out with the last crop. Enzyme digestion, which is what we do, is the best biologically evolved solution to convert food into available nutrients. And the environment will always need recycling, reduced chemical fertilizers and pesticides, greenhouse gas reduction, and carbon sequestration. So our technology, enzyme digestion, is simple, but it's disruptive. The alternatives to recycle organics are anaerobic digestion and composting. These technologies take a long time, require a lot of capital, and produce finished products that have much lesser value. We're a low-cost producer of a high-value product. And here's how it works. We put these totes and buggies in the back of the supermarket. That's the cull from one day of the produce aisle at the supermarket. And it's good for 1 acre for 1 year of sustainable farming. Our plant uses heat, mechanical action, and food-grade enzymes in a 3-hour process to basically break down the food. And it is a process that's food safe, eliminates pathogens, it's odor-free, and it's shelf-stable. So our product is harvest-to-harvest fertilizer. It's scientifically sustainable, and it's patented. And in day 3, the liquid fertilizer goes through the drip line into the root zone to grow the next crop. And our big announcement is we've just completed our first commercial scale plant. This is up in McClellan, California, outside of Sacramento. So we're really excited about that. And the scope of the opportunity is enormous. Food waste is about 30% of all food produced. And if it were a country, as a greenhouse gas emitter, would be number 3 after the US and China. So we're focused initially on the supermarket segment. That's 500 pounds of food per day that every store throws out. That's 500,000 tons in California alone, and it's worth $400 million a year. It's $2.4 billion in the US, and there are several other waste streams that can be bolted on to this process. So, and then you sell into the $60 billion a year US fertilizer and feed markets. From a competitive perspective, we have a 3-legged stool. Okay, we have our domestic patent and we have international patents pending. We enter into long-term supply contracts with supermarkets, and then also we have the great economic advantage of co-locating our plants with the supermarket distribution centers. So we have a permanent advantage from a transportation perspective. We've licensed the IP outside of California in the US, which has given us access to national scale supermarkets like Walmart, Safeway, Kroger, and so on. That immunizes our IP from dilution due to expansion, but it accelerates our first mover advantage. And our next step is international licensing. The exit, as our growth business becomes an annuity cash flow business that suits a long list of strategics and private equity. Save Mart Supermarkets is our first large supermarket customer. We've got a 10-year contract with them for all 218 of their stores. That's going to save them millions of dollars a year in transportation and disposal costs. On the farm side, we have growers that have started to buy the product. This is berries in Watsonville and Salinas. Why? Because they get a big increase in yield. It puts money in their pocket. This is a carrot trial, a 25% increase. Almonds, processing tomatoes, leafy greens, table and wine grapes are all great opportunities for us. If you can show, it takes time to penetrate the farm market, but if you can show a grower that consistently he can make $4 for $1 of expenditure, he'll do it. We've gotten great sustainability recognition for what we do. We've had hit these milestones. With a commercial scale plant, we cut our costs in half. Our capital costs are very low. It's easy to build these plants. It only takes 4 months. We're on the up curve on sales side. They're going to scale rapidly with new farms, greater penetration of our current farm customers, and ag products distributors. That's our team. That's our vision. We're done.
Excellent. Thank you. Christie, you want to start us off?
Sure. So one man's trash is another man's treasure, right?
Exactly.
So question I have is you are getting the discarded produce from the supermarket and then you're selling it to the farm. What does the cost look like? How much does it cost you to get the produce? Or can you break down the business model a little more?
Yeah, we actually get paid to take the material.
Okay.
And then our processing costs, we have to add a few things like we acid stabilize the product. We use enzymes that we buy to break down the food. We have energy costs. It's not an energy intensive process. We have labor costs to work the plant.
So the supermarkets are paying you to pick up
Yes,
this?
yes. And that's why we can make our finished product competitively priced for the grower, because we have low production costs and low cost of goods sold.
Is it a branded product? Are you?
Yes,
California Safe Soils?
harvest to harvest.
So you said something about yield improvement.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
The method of action is you put all of these basic building blocks of life in the soil, and it stimulates microbial activity and other soil organisms. With all that life in the soil, the plant gets the message something's going on. It grows more roots, it takes up more water and more fertilizer, and then it increases flowering and fruiting and increases yield. On the long term, the real benefit, the UC Davis scientists that we work with consistently say that when you have healthy soil, crops growing in healthy soil, they'll be much more naturally resistant to pests and diseases.
Okay, so now this is liquid fertilizer. So is there, at the grower level, is there anything, a switching cost or anything of the sort that they need to plan for, or is just a natural switch saying this makes more sense, let me just...
The liquid is great for the growers because most of them use drip lines or micro sprinklers. The water crisis in California has really accelerated that movement. So we can get this through existing farm equipment, and it's very cheap for the farm to actually apply the material.
So what about fouling, clogging, et cetera, of the drip lines?
Right. Well, that's always an issue. It depends on what kind of farm you're talking about. So if you have growers like leafy greens and berries, they put a lot of stuff through their lines. They always flush their lines. They're very good about flushing their lines. Others, we have to work with them to make sure that on a regular basis they flush their lines and clean them.
So you mentioned you have patents. What technology have you patented?
We have one patent we've obtained, and we have two others that are pending. It's a process patent that includes the mix of enzymes and the entire process from start to finish. The ones that are pending have the improvements to the technology that we've generated over 4 years of operating our pilot plant in West Sacramento, California.
Sort of a clarification, but what products do you run up against, or are you? Is there
In the ag market, the basic soil adjuvants, things like manure-based compost, green waste compost, things like compost teas, algae, or seaweed type products. There are a lot of different products out there. A lot of the growers, frankly, call it snake oil. So actually, our biggest challenge is overcoming the snake oil perception.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, with all those soil amendments that you just rattled off, there's a lot of concern, especially in the fresh, produce industry, regarding the safety of those products, and what they may or may not contribute to, human pathogens and things like that to the crop. What do you do to ensure the safety of, your products? I understand you to take food waste, right, which means animal parts and products, et cetera, from the grocery store.
Right. Well, we have a pasteurization step which eliminates pathogens. We've also done a challenge study at UC Davis where they inoculated our product with Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. And each case that they ran in each step of our process, the digest, the pasteurization, and stabilization, completely eliminated the pathogens. On the strength of that, our regulator, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, gave us a permanent license for our project and said they would license us any place we applied the technology.
So there's a new organic recycling law in California that's come into play. Does that have an impact on your business?
AB 1826, and yes, it does. There are a lot of people that have, we've seen a lot of RFPs lately to respond to see if we have a way to help recycle their food waste.
All right, many thanks, Dan.
Thank you.